The Evolution of Autistic Characters, an Autism in Media video project. By Kaylee Robbins, for English 4597.01, Autumn 2017. Since the word autism saw its first use in the 1940s, characters named as autistic have appeared in our movies, literature, stage plays, and TV shows. Though they are not widespread, pretty much everyone has an autistic character that comes readily to mind when they're asked to think about it. Raymond Babbitt from the 1988 movie Rain Man, for example. Then there's some more recent examples that might be more familiar to a younger audience, such as Oscar from the 2011 movie Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, Christopher from the 2012 play The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, Julia, a new Muppet on Sesame Street, Billy from the 2017 Power Rangers movie, Sean from the new TV show The Good Doctor, and Sam from the new Netflix series Atypical. These characters share in a list of common traits. They have savant aspects, they are inept in social situations, and they exhibit obsessive behavior. For those who may not know, Dr. David Trefford, a psychiatrist specializing in autism, defines savant syndrome as persons with serious mental disabilities, including autistic disorder, who have some island of genius which stands in marked incongruous contrast to overall handicap. The thing is, when people see an autistic character on the screen, they expect to see one or all of these traits played out. But what about when the characters are not named as autistic? Sometimes the author never comes out and says that they have written an autistic character. Swaths of characters have been headcanoned as autistic by autistic and non-autistic fans over the years. That is, fans believe that the characters are autistic regardless of what is said or not said about it in the work. Characters such as Spencer Reed from Criminal Minds, Peridot and Pearl from Steven Universe, Ben and Leslie from Parks and Rec, Will Graham from Hannibal, Pidge from Voltron, Tony Stark as Iron Man, Sherlock Holmes in all of his adaptations, and even Hermione from Harry Potter. And what do these characters have in common? They're often stereotypical nerds. They exhibit some degree of social awkwardness. This varies considerably. Their behavior is considered amusingly unusual, and they tend to have a special skill at something. So this brings up the question, why does an audience know when a character is autistic? Why are some characters named as autistic and others with autism symptoms are not? What defines the difference? Let's look at Rain Man for our first example, one of the first movies to deal explicitly with autism. Researcher Dalway Dreisma explains that decades after Hans Asperger did his research on autism in the 1940s, there was a surge of public interest, and Rain Man appeared when people had many questions about the newly named disorder. Dreisma credits Rain Man for creating a savant visuality in our current media on autism. Let's take a look at how exactly one of the earliest autistic characters was depicted in 1988. The scene begins in a doctor's office. Raymond sits by the window overlooking the street below, snapping pictures with a camera and rocking slightly in his chair, before he has insisted he wants to go to Kmart. His younger brother Charlie paces back and forth exasperatedly while talking to the white-coated doctor.
Well, what am I supposed to do? There's got to be something that I can do here.
Well, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I do know that his brain doesn't work like other people. And what he does isn't intended to be annoying. If he's getting on your nerves, you just take a break. Spend some time away from him.
Sure, I'll just send him back.
Sorry?
No, it's just inside jokes. You're telling me I just have to deal with this stuff. Is that it? I just got to deal with this stuff.
Charlie sits down.
Yeah, that's about it. Out of curiosity, does he have any special abilities?
Ray then goes on to repeatedly amaze Charlie and the doctor with his mathematical prowess, seeming to be a human calculator.
I read about this. I want to try something here.
Kmart, 400 Oak Street.
What'd I tell you after this, Ray? After this.
Ray, can we try something?
Yeah.
Do you know how much 312 times 123 is?
38376.
He's right.
5359262.
He's a genius.
He's right.
He's a genius.
46.15192304304.
The calculator is shown.
304.
That's amazing. I mean, that is amazing. He should work for NASA or something like that.
The doctor paces over to Ray.
If you had $1 and you spent 50 cents, how much money would you have left?
Charlie stares at Ray. Ray looks side to side.
About 70.
70 cents?
70 cents.
So much for the NASA idea.
At Kmart. You should go to Kmart.
In his particular case, he's pretty well off. He's very high functioning. Most autistics, they can't speak or they can't communicate.
Ray looks about and wipes his nose.
Ray,
Yeah.
do you know what autistic is?
Yeah.
You know that word?
Yeah.
Are you autistic?
The camera slowly zooms on Charlie's face.
I don't think so. No. Definitely not.
First of all, notice that the audience is told by a trusted medical professional that the character in question is autistic. We're also given the qualifier that he is well off for the average autistic person. This implies that the average autistic person has symptoms that are more severe than an inability to perform basic logic, an inability to function as an adult without a caregiver, and other symptoms such as fidgeting exhibited in the clip. This is important. Rain Man outright tells the audience to expect autistic people to be presented this way. Being one of the first portrayals of autism meant that Rain Man set the standard for portrayals to follow. It gave the audience a set of traits to expect. An inability to function on one's own in the wider world, extreme social ineptitude, odd but miraculous skills. So audiences have been trained to pick out these indicators. Nowadays they can do it without having the word autism mentioned. Take this trailer for the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime, for example. Christopher is explicitly autistic in the play, however, the word is never mentioned in this trailer. Pay attention to the indicators that audiences have been trained to pick up so that they can know it's autism without it being said. The trailer begins with Christopher, a skinny brown-haired adult portraying a 15-year-old boy, standing on a blue grid with white lines. At his feet is a white outline of a dog laying down, meant to resemble a please chalk outline. He fidgets with the strings of his blue hoodie.
My name is Christopher John Francis Boone. I live at 36 Randolph Street, Swindon. I like maths, outer space, looking after Toby, and I see everything.
A cloud of white letters explodes from Christopher in the outline of the dog. He shines a flashlight across the screen and watches as letters and papers float down on him from above. He selects an envelope from the group and examines it with the flashlight in his mouth. We then see a model train set.
In the bus on the way to school, we passed 4 red cars in a row. So today is a good day.
Backup dancers sing and dance. Christopher bounds across the stage, spins, and then draws on the floor with chalk.
I'm gonna find out who really killed the dog.
Someone killed a dog?
With a fork.
Jesus Christ!
A garden fork.
Oh.
Christopher is lifted on his belly and spun around as star-like lights flash around. A model train zooms by.
Is this train going to London?
Christopher is lifted up, walks sideways on the wall. In a flurry of scenes, he seems intermittently overwhelmed, concerned, and joyful. A young woman leans down to address the camera.
Come on, Christopher. Touch my hand.
The camera orbits the young woman and Christopher as they touch hands by the palm and smile. This example shows what audiences have come to expect from autistic characters, while also bringing up a few more tropes of autism narratives. Going off what audiences would expect, Christopher has a miraculous skill in figuring out the mystery. His thought process is depicted by a magical floating void with letters and figures swirling around his head. He has an obsessive thought process, the red cars, and can be taken to be socially awkward. Touching hands is a big deal. It also brings in the typical heartwarming narrative often expected from autistic people. The autistic person grows past their handicap, shown here by Christopher finally making physical contact with a loved one. The heartwarming autistic trope can also be seen in the tagline, "See your world differently." Dreisma agrees that often novels and movies suggest that autistic people may teach the non-autistic a wise lesson. Often these lessons are said to follow from the condition itself, for instance by suggesting that the lack of social skills also eliminates much that is artificial, phony, or plainly dishonest. But often autistic people don't want to be a heartwarming story for non-autistics. Dreisma says both the freak savant stereotype and the in a sense we're all autistic stereotype misrepresent autism. Perhaps that is the reason why autistic fans, and some non-autistic fans as well, headcanon non-named characters as autistic. They want characters with other types of stories to relate to than the savant or the heartwarming autistic. Take Will Graham, the main character from Hannibal, often headcanoned as having autism or Asperger's, but never stated as such in the show. What is the major trait discussed in this clip that goes against what an audience tends to see as autism? The clip begins in an office. Will, a bespectacled, curly, dark-haired man, sits at a desk with Hannibal at his side and his boss across the desk from him. Will doesn't make eye contact, which Hannibal has just called out.
I imagine what you see and learn touches everything else in your mind. Your values and decency are present, yet shocked at your associations, appalled at your dreams. No thoughts in the bone arena of your skull for things you love.
Will's face contorts.
Whose profile are you working on? Whose profile is he working on?
I'm sorry, Will. Observing is what we do. I can't shut mine off any more than you can shut yours off.
Please, don't psychoanalyze me. You won't like me when I'm psychoanalyzed.
Will.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go give a lecture on psychoanalyzing.
Will takes his coat and quickly exits the room.
Maybe we shouldn't poke him like that, Doctor. Perhaps a less, direct approach.
Hannibal leans in.
What he has is pure empathy. He can assume your point of view, or mine, and maybe some other points of view that scare him. It's an uncomfortable gift, Jack. Perception's a tool that's pointed on both ends.
Extreme empathy. Going directly against what many expect from autistic characters, Will is the heart of the show. While going against a common stereotype, it also plays into the fantastic savant-like skill expected from autistic characters. So despite the stereotypes Will breaks by being the emotional soul of the show, he still reinforces some expectations about autism. He is also never acknowledged as autistic, undoing the power this might have as a positive representation. This portrayal can be contrasted by Rick and Morty. Rick, one of the main characters, was long headcanoned as autistic by fans of the show. It is important to note that the creator himself is autistic. In the most recent episode of Season 4, Episode 10, Rick is playing Minecraft, a stereotypical pastime of autistic people, with Morty. The way the scene is portrayed is very important. He initially shows this overly analytical behavior, typical of autistic characters.
Use that wood to make a chest. Oh, good, then I can store all this wood I'll need later for chest making. Okay, you're not gonna have fun if you analyze everything.
Then he poses a question to Morty, which Morty responds to uneasily. Due to the unorthodox nature of the show, Morty is most likely anticipating an offensive joke or insensitive comment. Instead, we get this.
Is this game popular with autistic people? Why would you say something like that? Because I'm starting to love it.
This exchange is not presented as a joke or a one-off laugh. Morty looks sincerely happy to hear Rick admitting that he is autistic. It is a moment of character development for him, and yet it doesn't go against anything that the show has presented about his character thus far. The reveal of Rick's autism is natural and treated like just another aspect of his character. His autism isn't defined by an amazing savant skill or a heartwarming narrative, but by his characterization throughout the series. But perhaps the most important part of this representation is that, in contrast to Raymond and Rain Man, Rick is totally aware of his autism and he does not seem particularly concerned about it. He owns it. The Rick should definitely not be seen as the new hard standard for autistic characters. Perhaps in the future, more media will follow Rick and Morty's lead and have casual autistic characters in their rosters. Then autistic and non-autistic fans alike would not have to settle for headcanoning for fun and accurate representation, but have it already in the shows they love. So what defines the difference between named and headcanoned autistic characters? Named autistic characters draw on a set of stereotypes left over by movies like Rain Man. They largely do not appeal to autistic fans today. Headcanoned autistic characters are ones that defy stereotypes and get to have their own unique narratives beyond the usual autism narratives. And hopefully, as can be seen with Rick, some named autistic characters are bridging the gap and creating a new world of autism representation in media. Credits. Thank you very much for watching. This video was created for the final project in the class, The Disability Experience in the Contemporary World, taught by Dr. Margaret Price at The Ohio State University, autumn 2017. All clips taken and publicly available from YouTube, being used here for educational and criticism purposes. Sources: Dawe Dreisma, Stereotypes of Autism; Mark Osteen, Autism and Representation; Daryl Treffert, The Savant Syndrome, An Extraordinary Condition, a synopsis, past, present, future. All access 12/7/17. Music documentary by Alexander Shamalov by Kaylee Robbins. Captioning and audio description by Kaylee Robbins.